Okay, roll when you're ready.
Ready. Okay, so I was working 5 nights a week, and kids were in the neighborhood, um, and the Martinez family lived on Santa Clara. I lived on Osaway, right off of that in Hayward. So I met the Martinez family, and I started teaching Chris. He was a guitar player, and his brothers, and they had a band. But then he started to branch off with Derek Davis and form like a newer kind of thing, because he was more rock and roll than I think his brothers were. So what happened was I started giving what I call band labs. I would go to the rehearsal spot and conduct how they were going to get their balances and advise them on this and that, what key, the tempo, all the technical things and stuff, and kind of help them out. I think a good producer lets the artist lead, and I was kind of doing that, but I would give them the right advice to give them the polish. And they had so much stage presence. And Derek had this great voice. But I'd wake up Saturday morning, and my whole front room would be full of people that were there to see me about this or see me about that. That's how I had to get a studio and get out of bringing everybody in. But early on, Derek would be out in front yard smoking a cigarette, and Chris would be waiting for me, and then I'd go around the corner and stuff, and that's about it. I mean, that was kind of like, I felt like, that in the beginning I was giving them some coaching that they needed. And Chris passed away a few years ago, but Derek is still active. He's so, I would say, multi-talented. He's got all these different styles he does. He does the blues. He'll come out with like an R&B thing. He'll go back to, the rock and roll thing. And so I can't say enough great things about it. And he remembers people, Nice. He came into my studio a couple of times to look at some of my music. And that was it. With Spitfire, they were just these little kids. So this is a great story. I decided I was going to do something that was going to blow everybody's mind. I was going to take kids out there, and I was going to really, really show all the other bands how a little bit of strategy could go a long way. So if you look at a picture of them, the guitar player looked like he was just a beautiful looking, like Peter Frampton kind of guy. The lead singer was a short guy, but they had like 2 guitars, a bass player, and a drummer, and they were all really talented kids, but they were all taking lessons. So I thought, we really got to do something here that's going to blow some minds. So I said, you guys are going to work on Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin. And we're going to set it up, and Steve Stevens, or Steve Murphy, you're going to play the guitar with a violin bow and do that middle part that Jimmy Page does. When the music stops, and we're going to put it on an echoplex. And whenever you hit the strings like this with a chord, and the chord thumped out, when he pointed out with a bow, the music would come out of the left side of the stage. He hit it again, you go over here, come out of the right. And here, you can see it was like ping-ponging. And then he picked up the tempo, back and forth. And before the finale, where he got down on his knees and just did a bunch of this, trills kind of things and stuff, and ended it. But it was so effective. When they were at the Vets Hall opening for Mile High, that's why I did that, because I wanted them to look good with Mile High. And Mile High was just like, whoa, where did that come from? But it was that little echoplex thing, and when he would point out at the audience, the music would jump out at him. But then it started to go like this around their heads, and you could just see the effect that it had on it. And that was part of getting him on the bill with people that were really, I'd say, at the top of the ladder. Eric Martin, great singer at the time, Mile High, you know, some of those guys playing Y&T now, you know, John Nyman. And that's it, you know, that was Spitfire. So I don't remember whether we did that at the Battle of the Bands, but I know that we worked that out. And I think that's why they got up at the Battle of the Bands, because the competition was fierce. But they won, I think, second or something like that. I don't know, or third, I don't remember. But one of the bands, Troy Lucetta was in, and that was the band that was called Whisper. And they won. And
yeah,
he was there.
I was also their manager.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite the story because, you know, as they were rehearsing and coming up, and, you know, Troy was like 17, I believe, at the time. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal little drummer. You know, like Denny Carmassi, you could see his touches and the John Bonham touches. But he had a style and flurry of his own. And then you added Jay Gomez on lead guitar, and then Scott Payne on rhythm and doing lead vocals, and Dave Canaday on bass. And the four of them had chemistry. They had a magic about them, and that's why I decided, I think I'd like to take these kids under the wing, kind of doing like what you were doing, taking the things that I had learned that you see work, like the Led Zeppelin thing. And we got them costumed, and we got them with makeup, but it was all about the music that they were playing, which was their own. And when they unleashed that at the battle in January of 1977, just blew everyone's minds. You know, something else.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Troy's picture's up on my wall. He took voice lessons from me.
Oh, nice.
Because he wasn't a singer, he was a drummer, but he wanted to produce vocals. So he came in and I taught him how to breathe from the diaphragm, and he said, well, when you're producing, do this and that. I guess basically that's the call that I got a lot from other producers, is they wanted somebody that was like a doctor of voice, you know, because I was doing all the singing back in the day, so I was able to like show people how to get the best sound from all the cover tunes. The cover college, that's the best college you can go to for music. You learn all that stuff. Every song's a book of learning, you know. So he came in, and I think he moved to Arizona or something, I don't know.